Year 878, Viking victory at the Battle of Edington. In the year 878, a momentous battle took place on the fields of Edington in England. King Alfred the Great of Wessex, renowned for his valor and determination, faced off against a mighty Viking force led by the fearsome warlord Guthrum. The outcome of this clash would not only alter the course of history but also reshape the destiny of the Viking people. Alfred, a staunch defender of his kingdom, had long fought against the Viking incursions, valiantly defending the lands of Wessex. However, fate had a different plan in store for him and his people. Despite their best efforts, Alfred's forces were overwhelmed by the ferocity and sheer numbers of the Viking warriors. The battle ended in a resounding victory for Guthrum, with Alfred himself narrowly escaping with his life. With the defeat at Edington, the Viking control of England solidified, marking a turning point in history. Guthrum wasted no time in consolidating his power, establishing a Viking dynasty that would span the centuries to come. Year 883, Guthrum the Conqueror. Emboldened by his triumph at Edington, Guthrum, now known as Guthrum the Conqueror, set his sights on expanding Viking dominion beyond England. With his vast army and unyielding ambition, he led his forces across the North Sea, venturing deep into the heart of Europe. Year 888, Viking invasion of Francia. Guthrum's forces, fueled by their insatiable hunger for conquest, swept across the land, ravaging towns and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The mighty Frankish Empire, ruled by the Carolingian dynasty, found itself ill-prepared to face this new onslaught. The Vikings overwhelmed the weakened Franks, plundering their riches and establishing Viking settlements along the coastlines. Year 893, the fall of Paris. As Viking power grew, the legendary city of Paris, once an impregnable fortress, faced its darkest hour. The Viking fleet, under the command of Ivar the Boneless, launched a relentless siege upon the city. The valiant defenders fought tooth and nail, but they were no match for the relentless assault. Paris fell, its grandeur tarnished under the Viking banner. Year 907, the Viking throne of Rome. The Vikings, now intoxicated by their unprecedented conquests, set their sights on the heart of the Christian world. Under the command of the audacious Viking chieftain Ragnar Lothbrok, they descended upon the eternal city itself. The Pope, helpless against the Viking tide, was forced to flee, and Rome fell under Viking rule. The Viking throne in Rome marked a symbol of Viking domination that resonated across the medieval world. Year 920, Viking dominion in Byzantium. No realm seemed immune to the Viking onslaught, not even the mighty Byzantine Empire. Viking longships sailed through the Bosphorus, setting their eyes on the prosperous lands of Byzantium. The Byzantines, though renowned for their military might, struggled to fend off the relentless Viking attacks. Eventually, Viking control over key strategic cities and trade routes weakened the Byzantine Empire, forcing them to cede significant territories to their Nordic conquerors. Year 937, Battle of the Longships. The nations of Europe, exhausted by decades of Viking aggression, banded together in a desperate bid to repel the Viking hordes. Led by a coalition of Frankish, Saxon, and Byzantine forces, they clashed with the Vikings in a decisive battle known as the Battle of the Longships. The outcome hung in the balance, but ultimately, the Vikings emerged victorious once again, shattering the hopes of the beleaguered European kingdoms. Year 956, the Viking hegemony. With each victory, the Vikings grew bolder, and their dominion expanded. The once mighty kingdoms of Europe lay prostrate before the Viking conquerors, forced to pay tribute and bend the knee to their Nordic overlords. The world had been irrevocably changed by the Vikings' indomitable spirit and insatiable thirst for power. As the years passed, Viking influence spread like wildfire, permeating every aspect of medieval society. The Viking culture, with its rich tapestry of traditions, gods, and sagas, eclipsed the old order. The world, forever altered by the Viking ascendancy, became a realm where longships sailed the Rhine, Viking kings ruled from palaces of plunder, and the echoes of their fierce battles resonated across the ages. Thus, an alternate history unfolded, where the Vikings, rising from the ashes of Edington, carved a new path that forever shaped the medieval world. Year 971, Viking exploration of the New World. The Viking appetite for discovery and adventure reached new heights as they set their sights on uncharted lands. Leif Erikson, a legendary Viking explorer, led an expedition westward across the vast Atlantic Ocean. The Viking longships, sturdy and swift, carried them to a new continent, which they named Vinland. The Viking presence in the New World, though limited, opened the door to further exploration and colonization, forever altering the course of history. Year 984, the Great Northern Alliance. The Viking kingdoms, recognizing the strength of unity, forged a powerful alliance known as the Great Northern Alliance. Led by the Viking High King, Harald Fairhair, this unprecedented coalition brought together Viking realms from Scandinavia to England, pooling their resources and military might. The alliance created an unstoppable force that dominated the seas and struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. Year 999, the Viking Papacy. The relentless expansion of Viking power reached its zenith when a Viking warlord named Canute the Conqueror ascended to the papal throne. The Viking Papacy marked a stunning triumph for Viking influence, as Canute imposed Viking traditions, rituals, and customs upon the Catholic Church. The medieval world now found itself under the spiritual dominion of the Norse gods, with Thor and Odin worshipped alongside traditional Christian saints. Year 1012, the Great Viking Schism. The Viking Papacy sowed seeds of discontent among the European nobility and clergy. A faction within the Catholic Church, staunchly opposed to Viking influence, rose in rebellion. This division within the Church triggered the Great Viking Schism, splintering Christianity into two distinct factions, the Viking Church and the Traditionalist Church. The schism engendered bitter rivalries, sparked wars, and forever changed the religious landscape of medieval Europe. Year 1027, the Viking Crusades. In a twist of fate, it was now the Vikings who embarked on holy wars of conquest, mirroring the Crusades of our historical timeline. Driven by religious fervor and a desire to spread their faith, Viking warriors embarked on campaigns to convert and conquer lands in the East. The Viking Crusades brought them into conflict with the Byzantine Empire, the Islamic caliphates, and even their former Frankish allies. The medieval world trembled under the thunderous charge of the Viking armies, reshaping the geopolitical landscape. Year 1056, the fall of Constantinople. The Viking Crusades culminated in the dramatic siege and fall of Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire. Viking forces, led by the indomitable Ragnar Ironside, breached the seemingly impregnable walls of the city, unleashing chaos and devastation. The Byzantine Empire crumbled under the Viking onslaught, marking the end of an era and the dawn of a new Viking age in the East. Year 1088, the Viking Empire. The Viking Empire, stretching from Vinland in the west to the shores of the Black Sea in the east, stood as a testament to Viking supremacy. The Nordic conquerors, intoxicated by their unparalleled conquests, established a vast empire that spanned continents. Viking culture, language, and traditions spread like wildfire, leaving an indelible mark on the medieval world. Year 1121, the Viking Twilight. The Viking Empire, once invincible, now faced internal strife and external pressures. Rival Viking factions vied for power, triggering a wave of civil wars and conflicts. Simultaneously, resurgent European kingdoms, weary of Viking dominance, mustered their strength to challenge the once unstoppable force. The Viking Twilight had begun, signaling the gradual decline of their empire and the resurgence of traditional powers. Year 1204, the Viking Collapse. In a cataclysmic turn of events, the Viking Empire succumbed to its own internal divisions and the relentless assaults of its enemies. The Viking collapse witnessed the disintegration of Viking rule and the resurgence of European monarchies. The Viking era, which had reshaped the medieval world with its indomitable spirit and audacious conquests, drew to a close, leaving a lasting legacy of awe and fascination in its wake.